One of the most productive backs in the SEC is heading to Ohio State. Welcome to Snap Judgments. They are brought to you by Buyers Auto. That's Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward, and the Buckeyes' new tailback is Quinshon Judkins. Are they going to pair him with TreVeyon Henderson? Who knows? We'll get to that part. But, Bill, you have taken a closer look at the numbers. Why is the pickup of Judkins out of the transfer portal so potentially significant for the Buckeyes?
I first want to acknowledge that, like, a lot of times, like, good players will go into the portal and then we'll throw something in the Slack like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if Ohio State got this guy? And then, like, they never do. And this time they did. So that's pretty cool.
Hey, so you were joking about that with Seth McLaughlin, and that one came true. And then you were serious about Quinshon Judkins, and they got them both. So whatever, you need to be careful with what you're saying.
I'm going to say that Ohio State's going to get Jalen Carter from the Eagles and see how that goes. Maybe that'll work.
With great power comes great responsibility, Bill.
That's right. He's a really good player. Like that's like obvious statement. He's arguably the most productive back in the Power 5 the last 2 years. He has the most rushing yards in the Power 5 the last 2 years. Just a solid, like, all around running back. Like there's not a lot of holes in his game. His, like, contact balance is incredible. The way he runs through tackles is special. I don't think he's like a pure burner, but, like, if you look at missed tackles forced and yards after contact per carry, which is not exceptionally high, only because he gets so many carries, but the fact that it's as high as it is, which is it's like just under 4 yards for a guy who's carried the ball over 500 times the last 2 years, I think is pretty crazy. So it's I in the transfer portal era, aside from, like, Justin Fields being the obvious one, I don't know how often we feel like Ohio State has gone into the portal and gotten the best available player at a particular position. That seems to have happened here with Quinshon Judkins. I was shocked when he went into the portal because he's been such an important part of Ole Miss's offense. But it's a pretty massive get, I think, for Ohio State.
He's one of two players in the last 50 years to rush for 15 touchdowns in his freshman and sophomore year in the SEC, and the other one is Herschel Walker. So it's pretty impressive company, and a player that I think, we talked about him last Friday on Freaky Friday, and like, hey, if TreVeyon Henderson leaves, and this is I said then Ohio State will be the front runner in the recruitment. What I didn't really consider was that Quinshon Judkins has had 500 carries in the last 2 years, and maybe what he was looking for was a chance to take a little bit of less of a beating. And the idea of him teaming up with TreVeyon Henderson probably was really enticing to him as he started to break down his potential options. The fact is, he didn't really seem interested in any other schools. We saw other teams being, connected to him, but every time that happened, those schools and their own media members who cover him kind of poo-pooed it out of hand. So it seemed like before he entered the portal, I had mentioned that I know there was conversation between him and Davis and Igbinosun, and it seemed like Ohio State was just where he wanted to go. And the more I think about it, it's probably because the Buckeyes have done a great job in the last couple of years of making sure that one running back isn't getting the ball 400 times a year.
Yeah, he popped in for that visit on Sunday, and it was like there was no real fanfare for it. There wasn't a ton of coverage. He wasn't talking about all the offers that were out there. And then, by Sunday night, it was like, okay, well, he had expressed interest in Ohio State. Ohio State had interest in him. This thing is done. It's a perfect fit. You had walked up to the precipice of that on Friday, Berm, where you were about to say Ohio State's going to get him no matter what TreVeyon Henderson decides. And Bill and I were like, whoa, that's wild. And then you kind of backed off, but you were right.
Yeah, it's hard. You don't want to say too much sometimes, but
toot that horn, baby. Toot it.
The connection was apparent from the minute that he got into the transfer portal. And then all of the hints that came with it, like following every single player in the Ohio State football program on his social medias, including incoming freshmen. People I think he followed Archie Griffin. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, he's like
Archie's on the gram.
Archie's on the gram. I didn't know Archie was out there.
Anything that he could find a way to connect himself to Ohio State, he did. And you still have to then follow through on the visit, and he did that on Sunday. The Buckeyes obviously hit a home run with that trip, as they normally do. And you're looking at now between Will Howard and Quinshon Judkins and Seth McLaughlin, like, a really interesting trio of transfers, and then you add in Will Kekmerick from Ohio. Like, you're looking at 4 not just depth pieces for Ohio State on offense, 4 big time contributors for the 2024 offense are now new pieces that weren't even being discussed 3 weeks ago.
This is a pretty fascinating dynamic in the way, and I guess we can use that aggressive moniker here for the way Ohio State handled the transfer portal, because they're addressing 2 different paths at the same time. If Travion Henderson goes to the NFL draft, well, then you have a new bell cow starter who can take that many carries. Probably wouldn't be ideal. I don't think that's what he wants, but you know that he can handle 300, 350, 400 carries and be your leading rusher and be really productive. 2,000-yard seasons in the SEC and 31 touchdowns tells you that he can handle that job. So you have a backup plan if you don't get the news that Ohio State would hope to hear from Travion Henderson. And if you get good news, my goodness, I'm not sure that you can find a better 1-2 punch. Thunder Lightning, if you want to go that route, whatever it is, but top 2 backs with NFL potential and top end speed for Travion and the ability to break tackles the way that Judkins did in the SEC. I mean, good luck finding a better combination of proven productive backs than these 2. And that's your best case scenario. And option B is still pretty good as well if you're going to supplement Judkins with potentially Dallin Hayden and then some combination of true freshmen.
Yeah, option B still makes me wonder if they might look to add another one, just even if for depth purposes. I guess that applies to option A as well. But the idea of Travion and Quinshon playing together is kind of crazy, because I think they want to run similarly in terms of like the types of plays that suit them best, but they kind of achieve their success differently. Like Travion will hit you for 70 yards on one play, and then Quinshon Judkins can come back and run the same play and like run over your blank linebacker and make it a 12-yard run. Like it's 2 complementary styles there. But I think what's nice for Ohio State, if it ends up that they have both of them, is they don't have to really change their rushing attack no matter which one of them is in. And that's part of what's interesting about this to me, is if you look at the kind of runs that Quinshon Judkins was most successful on at Ole Miss, it's a lot of inside zone, a lot of gap runs, a lot of stuff between the tackles, and less like outside zone. There's some, but just not a lot. And it does make me wonder, and we saw this past season with Ohio State, getting away from so much outside zone is bringing in a player like Quinshon Judkins another step in that direction to diversify the run game a little bit, but also, in my opinion, get more into some things that certainly work best for Quinshon Judkins and Ole Miss, seemed to work best for Travion Henderson last year, and also worked best for Ohio State's offensive line last year too. So that would make me excited about, I think, what Ohio State's run game could be in 2024, not just the personnel, but the way they go about it.
And that style also works best for Dallin Hayden. And so you get an opportunity to have a 3-headed monster back there, and then you add the run component and run threat that Will Howard provides. And all of a sudden, even though you have five stars at wide receiver, like you have the ability to hit people in a number of different ways, provided that the offensive line takes the step that everyone needs it to, which I guess is the giant asterisk on all this. But
I think looking at it a month ago, when you see Evan Pryor go in the transfer portal, that doesn't come as necessarily a huge surprise. Mayan Williams goes to the NFL draft. It was hard to envision him probably taking advantage of the extra eligibility that was afforded to him at Ohio State. And then the Chip Trayanum one was really the one that I think took me by surprise. But when you wipe out that room and 3 guys who could have been in it, maybe at this time a month ago, I should have been saying, well, Ohio State's got to be more involved in looking to pick up from the transfer portal. But there just wasn't like an option to go out there and, well, this guy could definitely help Ohio State. It doesn't seem like this happens all that frequently at this position. It's such a, we talk about NFL devaluing running backs and the contracts going down. Like, it doesn't seem like in college football that you're having impactful running backs go in at the same rate as other positions. And so I didn't really think about it. Like, it's got to be a priority to get a running back, because if you kept Travion, that was still going to be better than pretty much anything else you could have. And I'm building all that up to say someone like Judkins is just not generally available. And the fact that he became an option for Ohio State and they were able to close the deal in such quick succession is pretty significant to me. That's a change in philosophy, and it's maximizing an opportunity that I have to tip my hat to that. This is a big deal.
And to be, you can correct me, but like beat SEC teams out too, right? That's not like they were beaten out.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like Florida State was really involved for a moment, but I don't know that Alabama was ever involved. Georgia was not, because they had already gone out and gotten Trevor Etienne. So I think that what it does, though, you lost Jordan Lyle on signing day. You wanted 5 running backs in this room. Again, provided Travion Henderson doesn't shock anyone or just, change his mind, I guess, because everyone believes that he was leaning towards coming back. You now have that with James Peoples and Sam Williams-Dixon, who both got to campus on Sunday. So now you have all 5 of those guys, at least through the spring, and it gives you the depth that you're looking for in that room. But it's not just the depth. You have significantly elevated the floor and the ceiling of that room with an addition of a guy like Judkins.
Anything else, Bill?
No, I'm curious about the philosophy of the offense, like as a whole going into next year, like with Will Howard, presumably a quarterback, making this addition, like getting a tight end who's more known for his blocking than anything else, getting, I think, a pretty physical offensive lineman and Seth McLaughlin. We'll see whether, the snapping thing is an issue that have to get cleaned up, but you're adding some beef up front. Like, does Ohio State want to be more of a power team next year? And I don't think they'll ever be a team that's like, running the ball 50 times a game or 60 times a game with Ryan Day here, because he wants to throw the ball around. But I also don't think Will Howard's a quarterback that he wants throwing the ball 35 times a game either. And I think he's a quarterback who needs to run the ball probably between 5 to 10 times a game. So it's like very early. I'm not trying to get too carried away with it, but I am on alert for a little bit of a philosophical transition, I guess, with Ohio State's offense moving forward.
Well, doesn't that depend on who the offensive coordinator is?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, that's the next big piece of the puzzle for the offense, I'd imagine, other than maybe finding another depth piece or 2 on the offensive line. But beyond that, provided Travion Henderson doesn't head off to the NFL, like the offense seems pretty complete with the addition of Merrick from Ohio last week, the tight end. Now Will Howard and McLaughlin, and now Judkins is sort of that cherry on top, because he was not in the portal as of 5 days ago, and now he's already going to Ohio State.
Yeah, and now that deal is done, and Ohio State's landed another big-time portal addition to add to the backfield. We'll see exactly how that will shake out with Travion Henderson's decision, but either way, they've now got themselves covered with one of the most productive running backs in the country heading to Columbus. For Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham, I'm Austin Ward. These have been Snap Judgments. They're brought to you by Buyers Auto. Quinshon Judkins locked into the Buckeyes. We'll talk about more moves and more offseason as the week ahead on the podcast. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.